Hey, good morning, everybody. I'd like to call to order the MAPC officers meeting.
Oh, bear
Wait,
with
one.
me. Bear with me one moment. It is
Sorry,
now
Patrice.
starting. Okay, yes.
Okay. Morning, everybody. I'd like to call to order the MAPC officers meeting of November 6th, 2023. And this meeting is being conducted remotely via Zoom conference, consistent with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023. This includes an extension until March 31st, 2025 of the remote meeting provisions of former Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, which suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. To provide public access to the meeting while limiting potential for abuse of video conferencing technology, members of the public may view the proceedings at www.youtube.com/user/MAPC Metro Boston. First item on our agenda is approval of minutes from October 6th, 2023. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion by
Second.
Sam, second by Imai. Any discussion? Hearing or seeing none, roll call vote. Sam?
Aye.
Imai?
Aye.
And I, Jen. Sorry, I felt like I was missing something.
No, you're good.
All right.
It's a small crew today.
Yeah. Next on the agenda are contracts.
And
I will go
Jen, to go to Anna, I'm just going to share my screen as we're getting there to just support Anna on this effort.
Great. Thanks, Lizzie.
Yeah.
Anna.
Let's see, my computer is not sure what I'm sharing, so give me a second. There we go. And just, I'm pulling up the revenue contracts first. Can folks see that?
Yes.
So Anna, do you want me to run through these or do you want to?
You can run through them if you like.
I'm glad to. Yeah, so I think if folks remember at our last October meeting, we had a slightly smaller amount of revenue contracts here. We got a lot going on this month. I think some of the big ones to sort of point out that we're really excited about, we're doing the Malden Climate Action Plan, which is great, and that will ultimately feed into some of our climate pollution reduction grant work that we're doing on our federal grant. We're also doing some work with DCR. This is longstanding work. I think it's a couple years in the making around this is the Trails database piece. We're really excited to be kicking off this portion of the work. And then I think the other one that I would highlight is that I think we shared previously this Barr Foundation Climate Resilience Playbook contract that we are actually partnering with the state on this effort, but we're the ones that are actually doing the work on the Climate Resilience Playbook, and Barr has funded MAPC to do that work. And I'll just let folks here know, because it's pretty exciting that the governor and lieutenant governor are both very excited that MAPC is actually working so closely with the EA, with our friend Catherine Antos, on this climate resilience playbook. So those are probably the few that I want to point out. We also had some very large Homeland Security contracts, which I'm sure will be part of a future audit, as they often are, but not right now. They're just standard Homeland Security contracts. Any questions on the revenue contracts?
None. I see. Oh, may I ask a question? Just
go ahead,
while
Sam.
we're doing. So I see, Lizzie, these look like good numbers. There's a fair amount of pass through coming through as well in this money. Is that so? That's all just part of these different allocations.
Yeah. So on the DCR contract, a good portion of those pass-through dollars are actually going to our sister RPAs across the state so that we can kind of do our statewide trail mapping, which is wonderful. The climate resilience playbook pass-through dollars are for community-based organizations so that we're doing our resiliency playbook with communities and neighborhoods really at the fore of creating that, so that it really actually feels like a toolkit that our communities and neighborhoods can use. And then the Homeland contract, this is big for the Northeast region, so it's our standard pass-through dollars.
Okay, that sounds great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Great. All right. If everyone's okay, I'm gonna stop sharing this and I'll pull up the expense contracts. See if they are already there. All right, here's our pass-throughs. I'm gonna just make it a little bit bigger if I can. All right, can folks see that?
Yes.
Great. So again, a number, we had sort of a smaller amount at our last meeting, a smaller amount at our last meeting, but we sort of have our more, there's kind of a lot of pass-through contracts here. A number of Homeland Security investments that are moving through pass-through. The Weston and Sampson engineers, that is our technical advisors on the climate pollution reduction grant. That's that $1 million grant that we got as part of the IIJA. And these are dollars that we're using to actually do some of the technical analysis work. We have specific funding in here on public health to do our public health excellence grants execution and some of the regional shared services work that we're doing in Revere. This one is actually small. The Lead for America contract, it's small, but it's actually really cool. So we have a Lead for America fellow, an American Connection Corps fellow. So this is starting to do our digital equity work. And it's really neat because it's like it's a pretty comprehensive program and a number of stakeholders. We're really excited to be able to work with them. And then the remaining ones are additional Homeland Security dollars pass through.
Thanks, Lizzie. Any questions on the pass-through for Lizzie?
Why not? I'll ask a question if that's okay, Jen.
Sure, go ahead,
I'll be
Sam.
quick. So just on the digital equity work, so I know Mark sent out something about some success you guys have just had. Can you just fill in this one into that picture a little bit more?
Sure. So actually our Lead for America fellow actually, and I'm looking at Amy because Amy was at the event, but I'm pretty sure that our Lead for America fellow has also attended our event. And so they are essentially supporting the digital equity work a little more on the data services side than on the municipal collaboration side. And it's just an opportunity to kind of pull younger people a little earlier in their career into this work. And it's a big program. It's actually like a nationwide program, and we're excited to be able to participate in having a fellow. And I will just also note the one other thing that I don't think Mark had seen by the time he sent out that information this morning from Jesse was that there was also a Globe editorial about digital equity work, and it actually cited some of our Revere work. And again, I think as folks on this call remember, it's a huge multi-team effort at MAPC to do all of this digital equity work. And so we had Will Pfeffer from our data services team and Brian Luther from our municipal collaboration team actually talked to the Globe on background pretty extensively. And so you can see that some of that reflected in the article.
Very cool. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All right, I'm going to stop sharing.
Thanks, Lizzie.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Anna, do you have anything to add on this agenda item, or are we all set?
I just wanted to bring, just the status of our annual fiscal audit that's currently taking place. So I can speak to that just for a minute or two.
Or
Yeah, so just more like informing this committee. So the audit started last Monday. We had a very productive week with the auditors. We are trying to be more efficient with the audit now that this is like my second time going through it. We had a very organized plan to tackle the audit so that we can be done a lot sooner. So the goal is try to get it all done with the reports, hopefully by December 31st. And so far, everything's gone well. And the auditors have decided to audit the Homeland Security, contracts, because due to the financial amount of money that was granted to MAPC, if it's anything over a certain amount of money, I think it's 750,000, then we have to do what we call like a single audit. And so that is taking place right now as well. But so far, everything's going well, and we still owe them a few things this week, but majority of the information has been given to the auditors, and they have been testing, and I will be working with them in the next few weeks to just provide them whatever else is left over. So they
great.
can complete the reports. Does
Thanks
anybody
for
have any questions on that process? Okay.
Okay, thanks for the update, Anna. Next is hiring and staff changes.
Yeah, so I'll take that on. So since our October meeting, we have had 2 new hires, 1 internal promotion, and we have a number of open positions right now. So I'm glad to just go through those. So we have actually hired an additional support staff person in our human resources department. So we hired a human resources coordinator. Her name's Julie. She started in early October. She has like a extensive background in recruitment. And so we're really excited to be able to bring her on board to offer some support to the HR team, particularly as we're thinking about broader and more inclusive recruitment. And we hired Annika Devanarayanan in, which I think I got right for the first time, as part of our data services team as one of our new digital equity planners. She really hit the ground running. She was also really helpful in the event that we held in Revere the other day. And she started in mid-October. I also wanted to note, because I think we didn't mention this at our last meeting, that we hired a lead field trainer. So some of those dollars that you've seen over the years that are coming to us from DPH allowed us to actually hire somebody to do field training to actually like help cities and towns think about some of their local and regional public health. She started at the end of September. Her name is Elsa Zhao, and we were able to steal her from one of our municipalities. She worked in Malden as the lead inspector there. Our internal promotion, this is still somewhat hush hush, so some of the team here will read new information to them, is that Josh Fiala is becoming our land use generalist manager. So he is moving into that position because Chris Kushel, I think folks remember, left, moved with his family. And so we have promoted, we did a full search, but Josh was excellent. And so we are excited to be able to promote him. And he's still offboarding a lot of his responsibilities, but he'll be able to, I think, start in the new role, I think it's within the next week or so. We have a handful of open positions right now, and some of them we're interviewing for them already. So our Council 2 position remains open. It's a very difficult position to fill. We've had a really hard time getting interested folks in that number 2 in our council office. I'm making an offer today for an environmental planner. Really excited about the candidate pool there. We actually had really excellent candidates there, some of whom we might encourage to apply for our open land use planner position, because we have one of those positions as well. And then we have 2 positions open in municipal collaboration, which we're also undertaking interviews for right now, for a grants and procurement specialist and a grants and procurement coordinator. And those 2 open positions represent a bit of a restructuring inside the team, kind of rethinking the way we're managing work across the team to try to make sure that we can help support Amy and the rest of the team. And I think that's it.
Great. Thank you, Lizzie.
You bet.
Okay, moving on to review draft agenda for November 15th, 2023 Executive Committee meeting.
Actually,
Okay.
Jen, before we go on, can I ask just a quick on staffing?
Sure,
Just a
sorry,
quick-
Sam.
Yeah, please.
No, it's okay. Lizzie, on the council too, is that that's a staff attorney, and is that a fairly junior position, or is that a sort of more senior position?
I honestly think, Sam, this is what's making it hard to hire, is that yes, it's a relatively junior position, but we are seeking some qualifications for somebody who's done some of this work before. And as folks, it's not the first time they've heard of 30B. I think sort of an ideal candidate would even be somebody who is maybe looking to step back from sort of that even full-time role, or kind of has done some municipal work in the past, but we're just having a very difficult time kind of getting the word out for this position, because the salary is sort of at more of a junior level, because it's definitely a number 2 to Margie.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
But
if you know of any really fabulous municipal attorneys, please send them our way.
I have a neighbor who's just started a municipal job, but he may know some people, so I thought maybe I'll ask him as well.
Okay, that would be awesome. Yes, any and all leads are welcome, particularly on that position. So really, and it's not the first time it's been a difficult position for us to hire for. It's historically a difficult position for us, but I also just think kind of where the market is for relatively new lawyers, and then some of the quals I think are kind of scaring some folks away from what they would need to know. So
Yeah.
we're looking at it. We've reworked the job description like 3 times, I think.
Right. You want all the energy of a 27-year-old, but all the experience of a 48-year-old.
Yes, and we can't put that out.
Right.
Job list. Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for Lizzie on hiring? No? Okay. So moving on now to the review draft agenda for the November 15th Executive Committee meeting.
So I actually do not have a draft agenda for the November 15th Executive Committee meeting.
Okay.
I just realized that early this morning, so we can hold on that, and I'm sure we can be in touch.
Sounds good. Project update, and I apologize, I don't have more information on the project.
That's okay.
Are we?
I am glad to introduce the team.
Great.
I think, Amy, do you want me to turn it to you to say a few words? Or would you like me to introduce everyone?
Either way is fine. I can.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Amy Riley. I'm the director of the Municipal Collaboration Team. We have some members of our department here. It's our emergency management division. So as most of you know, a couple of years ago, due to kind of the aftermath of COVID and what we all experienced working within the pandemic with our stakeholders in the emergency management field, we saw that our team had some really great skill sets that were needed within municipalities within the region. And so kind of out of that, our emergency preparedness practice was born. Beth Robert, she's on the call. She leads that work. So maybe we can just quickly introduce Beth, Dan, and Jennifer, and then we can launch into a project we want to share some information with you all on our work in Medford. So I'll hand it over to Beth.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. So as Amy mentioned, I'm Beth Robert, the Emergency Preparedness Manager. And then with me, we have Dan and Jennifer. Dan is the Emergency Preparedness Specialist, and Jennifer is our Emergency Preparedness Coordinator. And I'm gonna go ahead. I have 3 slides that I'm gonna pull up and share with you all. All right, so we this morning wanted to give you all an update on a project that we are almost finishing up with the city of Medford. This is their emergency preparedness project. When we're done with it at the end of December, it will be about a year-long project that we've completed. What this came out of was, and as Amy had mentioned, kind of what the project came out of too, was with the response to COVID-19, what the city in Medford saw specifically was when a long duration emergency or event, the need for all departments to respond and have a role in emergencies, not just your standard first responders, as it's often thought of, that is involved in emergency management and emergency preparedness. So we worked with Medford, and MAPC was hired to work with their emergency management staff to really help them kind of revamp their entire emergency management department through a variety of different tasks. And I'm going to have Dan and Jennifer speak specifically to some of the project tasks that we worked on the city with.
Good morning, everyone. My name, as Beth mentioned, Dan Witz, Emergency Preparedness Specialist at MAPC. So I'll begin by covering the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan update, otherwise known as a SEMP. I'm going to refer to it as a SEMP just to streamline the presentation. So for those, a little background. So a SEMP is really a plan developed to address natural and human caused hazards that could impact a community. This document it's a living document that municipalities can use to prevent, prepare, respond, recover to any type of emergency or disaster. Also within the plan, it identifies specific areas of responsibility for positions, identifies coordinating resources to support a response. It's really a critical document for municipality to have and to keep updated. It also is a key document as it relates to funding sources for municipality, as a lot of grants through FEMA and MEMA require having an updated SEMP within the municipality. As it pertains to Medford, their SEMP hadn't been updated in a very, very, very long time. So we really were starting from scratch, which in this particular project, I think was actually a good thing, just to completely start fresh. So the SEMP update was really a community-driven process for us. We worked with, as Beth mentioned, the emergency management director, who was also the public health director for Medford. We worked with the police chief. We worked with communications director and a variety of other staff that were assigned from police to develop and update the plan. So there are a couple other components that go into the plan. There is a hazard and vulnerability assessment that was conducted, HVA for short. And essentially that assessment outlines the top hazards that the team identified that would impact Medford, that Medford's most vulnerable for. The way that Medford did it is it was broken out into a few different categories, then they ranked the hazards within the plan from there. So the categories they broke out were natural, technological, human, hazmat. And as I mentioned, within the plan, under those categories, they identified particular hazards. So that was early on in the project where that was done. Then another key component of the SEMP is a critical infrastructure document. And this is a document that outlines really every critical infrastructure site within the municipality. And this was a very large undertaking. It was done by some independent research by us at MAPC. We recruited other staff from Medford to help get these locations put into this document. This document has everything from hazmat sites to critical communication equipment, where that's posted in the city, medical facilities, hospitals, all the way down to childcare centers. Everything that would be deemed critical within a municipality is listed in this document. There's phone numbers, there's addresses, so it's a really thorough tool for the municipality to use and to keep updated. So in the event there is an emergency in a specific area, they're quickly able to identify facilities that are really going to be at risk in the event of an emergency. So where we're at with the SEMP is that we have that sent over to the municipality for an initial review. We're meeting with Medford this Thursday morning. At that meeting, we'll be looking for feedback, for edits, anything they want us to change or ask questions on as it relates to the plan. We're going to take that input, make the edits as necessary. Then we will send that back. And once it's sent back after this round of edits, it will be sent to municipal leadership for signatures and approval. So that's kind of an overview of the SEMP and where that lives. I think we can hold for questions until we go through this. So I will pass it over to Jennifer for how we develop the internal team for the municipality.
Thank you, Dan, and good morning, everyone. So the internal emergency management team was created to bring numerous departments and other relevant actors in Medford together on a regular occurrence. This was to promote and strengthen emergency preparedness and response in the city. Now, the team is able to do this by providing advice, information sharing, giving updates at monthly meetings, and really ensuring that the emergency management director has their assistance when a situation requires. So to kickstart this team, my colleagues and I built them a pretty solid foundation by leading the initial meetings, educating the group members on their roles, important considerations, and also providing information on best practices. Now, to support and position the group for when MAPC is no longer working with them, we also created guidance documents. Now, these included various meeting templates, principles of operation, and also information on future areas that the team can focus on. Now, this way, the internal emergency management team is able to continue to thrive now that they have the tools and the foundation that we've built. So that's the gist on that team, and I'll pass it back over to Dan.
Perfect, thank you. So another component of the project, and really the culmination of the project, was for us to create and implement a tabletop exercise for the entire municipality. It's important to recognize when we did this that there are folks that were brought into this tabletop exercise that had very little, if any, experience or understanding what emergency management or emergency preparedness is. So we tried to create this exercise where the end user could get the most out of it depending on what they have for experience. So it wasn't anything crazy to trick anybody. It was really aimed at trying to get all staff to think critically about what their role would be during an emergency. So this was done on October 18th. And we held the exercise at City Hall for all staff and all departments to attend. There was approximately 50 staff in attendance, and it ranged from, we had the mayor and executive staff there. We had DPW, really every single department was represented in some capacity. We also had representation from Tufts University. We had, I think, 3 or 4 representatives from the university there, which was great. And we also had representation from the local EMS provider, Armstrong Ambulance, which is great because they provide a very big role during an emergency. The exercise, so we went with a flood-based scenario, again, aimed at really having all departments to have a role in the initial response, working all the way through to the eventual recovery from the flood. The exercise was roughly 3.5-ish hours, was broken up into different modules. Staff were seated and broken up by departments. We would essentially provide updates throughout prior to each module. Then we would task all the departments in their tables they were sitting at to work through a series of questions. Then they would brief out their findings. From that, we had all the participants create a feedback form. This feedback form was vital for us to eventually create an after action report for the exercise and for the municipality, really analyzing strengths and areas for improvement from the exercise. We really focused on three key areas, which were planning, operational coordination, and public information and warning. That after action report draft was sent to the municipality, I believe it was last week. Again, we're going to meet with them this week and we're looking forward to hearing what they think, any edits or improvements that they would like us to make for that after action report. Again, that after action report and running municipal wide exercises is important for these municipalities to do, because again, having that documentation and showing the internal collaboration is useful when applying for, again, grants and other funding opportunities. So keeping this stuff organized for them, and also essentially providing them an outline if they wanted to do it again, is a really helpful tool for the municipality. So that's essentially an overview of the project. I know that was short and there was a lot more work than we could probably talk about in the few minutes that we have, but I think if there are any questions or if we want to pass it back to Beth, we can do so.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Yeah, so just kind of this is a picture of that tabletop that Dan was speaking of. And as both Dan and Jennifer had mentioned, these are some of the next steps that we're working to finalize with Medford in the next coming months. And really our goal with this, as we work to finalize this project, is to not only just hand them a plan and have them have it, but to really set them up for success when we're not working with them any longer, and they can continue to make improvements and keep their internal team going. I will say with Medford, I think we were, one of the great positive things was we had a lot of buy-in and support all the way from the top, the mayor, down to even all of the employees were all very interested and very invested in this and in their piece, which helped make the project successful. So that is, I'm going to stop sharing. That's all we have. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer them.
Imai?
Yeah, I was wondering, how did you guys kind of account for and think about, hazards that a municipality here hasn't faced yet, but are likely to come about due to changing climate? I'm from Hawaii. We never thought about wildfires that much because it rains so much, but it happened. So what kind of brainstorming, I guess, went around to that?
Yeah, sure. So when they conduct the hazard vulnerability assessment, and they go through the variety of different hazards, when they are ranking different hazards, they look at both past events and then potential current events, and they create a ranking and have discussion based off of both of those. So they'll bring in and they to that point, they'll bring in different research and look at what's going on with different areas, whether for example, for climate and whatnot, where they're vulnerable, and it's like a calculation that they go through an Excel sheet with when they put their probability and vulnerability into it, and that's how they take those items into consideration.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks. Sam?
It seems, as the days go by, this seems like more and more critical work. How much this is called an update, so it seems like Medford had something and you were updating that, or were you creating from whole cloth?
We were updating it. However, I believe it was more than, I want to say 20 years. The last update was about 20 years ago.
Yeah,
So
they didn't even have a plan on file, Sam. So essentially the SEMP, while it's called an update, technically it was a complete top to bottom redo.
If I can just ask a follow-up, how much, I haven't dealt directly with this in a little while, but how much time did you spend on the communication, particularly the public communication? Because that always struck me as, at times of crisis, that's one of the most, of all the important things, that's pretty important too.
You mean the public communication as to how would the city conduct that during an emergency, or
Yeah, that.
Yeah, we did spend quite a long time discussing that, and Medford has a variety of different tools and techniques to get their messaging out to the public. And it actually did come up in our tabletop that each department had kind of a miniature or vulnerability or specific population that they have contacts for. For example, the Council on Aging had a very robust contact list for their members. And then the fire department also had a robust list of residents that were vulnerable. So they all individually had a contact list of vulnerable populations. One of our recommendations to the city was to collaborate and connect those lists together in order to make, during an emergency, we were feeling pretty confident that some of those lists may cross paths. You may have one-on-one, so that they can make the most use of their time, and also make sure that they're not missing any vulnerable sections or vulnerable populations as well.
Fascinating work. I have lots of questions, but I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah, thank you all for that work. I think we realize, especially throughout the nation, but particularly at the municipal level, through COVID, that we may have had emergency preparedness plans, but really focused on those hazards that we were more familiar with, and not those unanticipated emergencies. With that said, is there anything that you learned through the process or recommendation? I guess twofold. One, is there a template that will be available to municipalities to put into place, either in anticipation of or in preparation, or that they can turn to in the event that they need to quickly mobilize emergency response?
Yes, there is a template on the MEMA website. They have a template that cities and towns can take, and they can adapt and use if they choose to do it on their own.
Okay, great. And what would you recommend be the initial step in that unexpected event for a municipality?
In the unexpected event of an emergency, or of updating their plan?
No, in an emergency. Or I guess either. And I didn't mean to stump you.
I would say, and I hate to say that it depends on the emergency, but without that being my response, I would say that the first step would be communication of the key decision makers, and then determining what the communication kind of outside of that group is going to look, right? Because you're going to have communication to the public, and then you're going to have communication to your other responders and quote players, I would say. And I think that maybe I think that's one of the most important things, that communication, because when you have an emergency and you want the same message to go out across all levels. And that really can, when you're sending the same message and information out to the public across all levels, that can help alleviate some confusion or mixed messages. Or if you have one point of contact that's giving the message out to the public, then you know that it's been vetted and everyone's getting the same message. And when you are hearing the same message from the mayor, from the police chief, from the fire chief, from other important players, even from your kind of like your community-based groups as well, those are important leaders to have involved as well. And when you can all send the same message, I think that really helps the public, one, get the information, but then two, they have the confidence when they're hearing the same message from everyone, that everyone is talking, everyone is working together in a joint response to the incident.
All right, excellent. Thank you all again for your work. Lizzie,
Yeah, I just wanted to add a few pieces here. I think, on a personal note, I'll say I'm very grateful that the team did this work in Medford because I live on the Mystic River. And so in the event of a flooding event, I deeply want my municipality to be as prepared as possible. I also just want to note that this team and this work is sort of an example of one of those things that's unique to MAPC when I look at our sister planning agencies across the state and across the country, where this was an idea that Amy came up with many years ago to grow our emergency preparedness practice. And here we are getting demand from our cities and towns to really put it into practice. And we're starting to see more municipalities even try to look at it from different angles, or even specifically address vulnerabilities within certain communities. We have some upcoming work that we're going to be doing in Brookline, which is really kind of evidence of some of this. I think the team also has just worked really well together and thinking about some of the ways that equity is something that we need to think about when we're addressing emergency preparedness. So thinking about how we're actually reaching out, how communities should be reaching out to vulnerable populations, how communities should be thinking about how they're bringing them in, like Beth just said, talking about the community-based organizations that are trusted stakeholders in the community. So I think the other thing about this work that's really impactful is it really dovetails with the values that we're trying to move inside Metro Common, because it's actually putting all of those things into practice to do this work in our cities and towns. And so I suspect that the team will actually soon be very overwhelmed with a tremendous amount of requests. The team also, I think Mark and I shared this with you, the team did some work actually to help the Metro Mayor's communities think about the migrant new arrivals crisis, to actually help them kind of understand what resources they had and where they had gaps. And I do think that sort of helps spark our communities to realize, oh, wait, we have a lot of other emergency preparedness needs. And so kind of coming to us to help with that. And I think the last thing I'll say is, Jen, to your point about sort of like, is there a toolkit? I think part of what makes the work difficult, but also really important, is that there is this sort of like unique, every municipality has assets and deficits when they're dealing with an emergency. And it's actually why it's so important to have somebody that's kind of outside to like be able to take that like 10,000 foot view and 500-foot view for the city or town. So I think there are we would love to be able to give cities and towns some support in terms of thinking about like best practices and toolkits and templates, but some of that work actually does. I mean, it's the blessing and the curse of being a strong home rule state, I think.
Yeah.
But just please join me in thanking the team for this work. It's really pretty great.
Absolutely. Before we get off the
ground.
topic though, I'm curious, did Medford come to you, or did you go to Medford with this idea or with this request?
Medford approached us.
To us. Yeah.
Okay.
And it did follow on the heels of some of that new arrivals work, because the team was talking directly with some of these folks in their cities and towns. Medford is also at the same time finishing a comprehensive plan, which they did not do with us. And so I think some of this work is actually, they recognize some vulnerabilities and deficiencies when they were doing their comprehensive plan. And so kind of following on to the work that we did around the new arrivals work with the municipality, they reached out and were eager to work with us.
I could I could see this work being critical across so many, deeply resourced communities can throw some of their own resources to try to do this work, but for the mid-size and smaller communities, I'm sure just would be crucial for them to everything from a shooting incident to an infectious disease outbreak to a flood. And
that's why we're the right team to do it, because we have expertise in all of those pieces. And I think, I'll note too, I think a lot of this work, and Beth and Dan and Jennifer alluded to it, is that a lot of this work does really overlap with some of our public health priorities. And obviously that was like a major thing that we saw during the pandemic. I mean, we have 101 cities and towns, and I think like 40 of them needed to set up some kind of emergency food security program during the pandemic, which was shocking, right? Because if 1 week into a pandemic, you have people who are suddenly and surprisingly food insecure, you have a food insecurity problem in your community. And so I think being able to do some of this work kind of with a little bit of that public health lens is is part of what Beth and Dan and Jennifer all bring to the effort, which is really important. So it's a little bit more of that interdisciplinary MAPC magic. So.
Very cool.
Great. Well, thank you all again for the presentation and bringing the magic together because it is really, really important work. So our next item on the agenda is other business not known at the time of posting the agenda. Do we have any other business?
No other big business. I think the one other thing I did want to just remind folks about the executive committee meeting is that it is going to be in person at MAPC's offices. And I think Ellen is going to be sending out an email to the entire executive committee about that today. So we are going to come back together and see each other in real life and have some lunch in our conference room again in November.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Lizzie. All right, if there is no other business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Sam, second by Sam. Or excuse me, second by Imai. I'll do a roll call vote. Sam,
Yes.
Imai,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, thank you again, everybody, and we will see you, I believe, next in person on November 15th.